What's going on, guys? Welcome back to RC4wd. So, back on the low buck blazer build, I guess we'll call it. Last video we did a lot of stuff and broke it. We got the interior detailed a little bit more, and yeah, did a little weathering and stuff, and got door panels in it. Made it look cool, and then our front axle broke, and I found the culprit of that. Looks like our inner bearing in here failed. A little bit of rust on the bolts on the axle, so I'm guessing this, bought a used truck, it's been in water, not taken care of properly. It happens. I've only ever had it happen to Yoda 1 axles. It's the first Yoda 2 I've had go bad. And it's been apart a lot before, I can tell you that, because there is pretty much nothing but, it looks like RTV holding this screw in. I could not get it out. It took me forever. There was like 2 threads that were biting into the axle, and the rest of it is just held together with hopes and wishes. But that bearing is disintegrated. I don't even know where the other piece went to it. It may still be in there. But it came apart, and then this cup got in a bind, and when I turned, it kind of popped, and those pieces were trying to come out the sides, and yeah. So, it could be fixed. We'd have to retap that and hope that it would hold a screw again. I've never tried it, but the only thing I could think of to fix that would be to drill it out and tap it as an M4, and then you'd have to find, these have these bushings in there. You'd have to find the right size depth bushing in an M4, and that would probably fix it, but I don't know. I mean, I got M4 hardware. I don't have M4 bushings, especially that size. We'd probably have to make something, and it'd be a big to-do. So I just bought another axle. Got a brand new Yoda 2. I really wanted to eventually switch this to K44s because they do look more like a Dana axle, American style for a Blazer, but I just can't afford it right now, and there's nothing wrong with the rear. So there's no sense in changing it if it ain't broken. So I just got a front one. I was trying to get the ones for like I used on the RC Model X build, because they were super cheap. I think I got both those axles with 4-link trusses and everything for like $70. Both axles complete. But I don't have time to wait for shipping from China. So I got this from an online hobby retailer, and it's here. And a big problem I noticed last time, the body's sitting crooked as can be. And I don't understand why that is, because I only got 4 mounts. They're all in the same spot, but they are pretty flimsy. They've been spaced out. The screws are loose. That one's bending around like that as I turn it, so that could be a problem. I did some digging on Amazon, off-brand hardware. So I found these. These are, I don't remember what size now. I think they're 36 millimeter, maybe 40. I don't remember. We'll have to measure it. They're threaded rods like you would make 4-link suspension out of. They look just like all the stuff that comes on all the axials and everything, to link rods for suspension. And being the Blazer is wider than a Hilux, they've already got spacers there, and I was having to put spacers on the outside because this body didn't come. The Blazer has a little plastic piece that attaches to here, and it has another piece that goes on the body, and they just kind of fit together with body pins. And I've never used it like that, so I just got the right size length threaded rod. And we're going to mount those straight to the chassis. They're aluminum to aluminum. They should be nice and solid. Give us a little more rigidity, can't say that. A little more rigidity in our body mounting situation. And hopefully that gets everything squared up. If not, we may have to look at putting the rear body post on. TF2s have pin or short body post here that stick through holes in the body. I've never put body pins on them when I run it, but sometimes having them there will keep the body from walking side to side or bouncing around too much on the chassis. And you think about it, real car has body mounts front, 4 under the cab, 4 under the bed. So, yeah, you mount your body in more than one place. So that might be something we have to look into, but we'll see when we get there. And I don't know yet, I don't like the leaf spring situation on this truck. They have the second largest leaf on top just to prevent axle wrap. These leaf springs still seem very stiff. I know the body's super heavy. I've got a set of red ones. I've never run the red ones. They're just usually too soft, and if you can't run red by themselves, so we'd have to have the red one as the main and throw these longer ones on the bottom. I don't know, these springs all seem very stiff for some reason, and I've got a bin of I have every leaf spring they make. Back when we did the Rat King hauler, and I was trying to find a certain length for my trailer because I'd already drilled all the holes and I kind of messed it up, so I have probably 100 different leaf springs. You wouldn't believe how many different lengths there are. I mean, there's you think back to the Tamiya Bruiser, it had flat leaf springs. Or not the Bruiser, the not the Mountaineer, the other one, the Hilux, the one that was the solid aluminum chassis that set lower, had the locking hubs, all that. it has a very long leaf spring, which wouldn't work on the TF2. Then there's Tamiya leaf springs, like for the high lift, they just have a huge arch. I mean, they're ridiculous. They have no flex whatsoever. I tried in the beginning to clamp these axles down and flatten these leaves out, and they just would not give. They came right back, and yeah, don't know that those are going to work out for us. But ultimately, I'd like to get this to set a little bit lower. You know, we're not building a rock crawler, we're building a scale trail truck. Everybody on the internet voted to keep these small tires, these 1/9 wheels, and I like the chrome look on there. It fits the period style, and having a very scale. These are what, Falcon Wild Peaks, I think. Good looking tire, so I'd like it to set a little lower. So we'll see what we can do about that. Another option we have, part of the Tiny Truck Nuts flip kit we did here, moves the transfer case, got his skid plate. He has axle flip kits, which would make sense on some Toyotas. You know, the axle was on top of the leaf, but I don't think the K5 ever came that way, and I don't know. It's so much drop that I think we'd run into a bunch of problems with our shocks. We'd have to go shorter shock. We'd have to move to the top mount. The backs, we'd have to very short shock. The backs, I think, on these are 110s. The fronts are 90s. That's why we always put the Gelan 2 hoops on, so we can, our 90 millimeter can actually function the full length of the stroke. Because out of the box, the kit, it's too low, and you bottom out your shock before any of your underside rubs. And you know, like I said, when this first part, we lifted the servo up and made more clearance for the axle. And then with these Gelan 2 hoops, now this thing can go all the way down. The shock bottoms out the exact same time the servo horn gets close to the axle, and everything just jives much better. But I don't know. We got a lot of options, a lot of things to think about. First thing we need to do is just get this axle on and see if we can straighten this body up. Alright guys, so that suspension change made a world of difference. I didn't have the right, I didn't have 4 of the extra leaves I wanted to put on, so I had to make some. I got my flattest full leaves and we sawed off about 1/2 inch on each end for the rears, and this thing has got amazing flex. Feels great, sets lower, but we got a big problem now. This has that front shackle reversal kit, so it hangs in the front, shackle in the back, as same as the rear is. Now that we set lower, you can see the tires are too far back in the wheel arches. We're back 4 or 5 millimeter, almost touching, 4 or 5 millimeter. So there's not a good way to fix this. Everything's difficult. The problem is, if we would have not had the front reversal kit, then the front axle would be further forward and the rear would be further backward, and there wouldn't be any way to fix it. So at least they're shifted rearward the same direction. The only thing I can think of is to drill new body mount on the chassis rail. We have to drill it back 3 or 4 millimeter from where they are and remount our new solid rod mounts. There's really nothing to do around it. I can't get around that. So the suspension and everything works great. It's got the lowered stance. It looks a little bit more stock. I'm digging it. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm not going to change the suspension. We're just going to move the body mounts and cross our fingers we can drill the hole straight. I'm not tearing the chassis all the way apart. It is going to be a pain. I'm going to have to take the transfer case out again. Yay. Oh Lord. But those solid body mounts did straighten the body up, so that was our problem. I noticed the first body mount I took out, screw was completely bent that it was holding it on. So this thing's seen some abuse in its life, unfortunately. So I'm going to take some measurements and see how far backwards we need to move this thing and get to drilling. Well guys, that worked out wonderfully, and it didn't work at the same time. So I moved the front mounts back and everything looks like it's going to jive good. Went to move the rear mounts, I've marked the holes and everything, and then I realized they are centered with this bolt. And that normally wouldn't be a problem, but when we put this crossmember on, some of the bolts broke in there because they were sharing holes with the upper mount. It goes all the way through. So we snapped off bolts, had to drill that whole thing out, and now it goes a nut on the other side for both rear crossmember mounts. So I can't drill where I need to drill and move these back 3 or 4 millimeter. So I've got the fronts on, everything looks like it's lining up great. I don't know what else to do. I've got a bunch of these rods. I think I'm going to bend these and see if we can get them to line up at all. Just bend them back a little bit. I really don't have any other option short of buying a new chassis rail and rebuilding the entire truck on it without this issue here that we can drill through and move the body mounts where we need it. So I'm really not keen on doing that. The chassis rails you can't even get a set for, I think they're around $100 right now, so even on eBay. So that's the kind of stuff we run into, but I'm going to give this a whirl here and see if we can't. Might work out pretty good actually. Oh come on. Because we have to have rear mounts. There's no way around it. So let's see if that looks bad on the outside with the screws going in at an angle a little bit. Oh no, you can't tell at all. Let me find one more screw. I had one fall off the table, so I have to borrow one from the junk pile. This one didn't quite bend far enough. There we go. I think that's gonna be alright. Get it nice and tight. Make sure our body is nice and straight. I think we are good, guys. Flip it over and see what we got. Alright guys, I don't like it. It's too janky. The body mounts, I put the post in the rear, drilled holes in it, put pins through to keep the body down in the back. The front's okay, but the rear is still too far back. We flex and we're hitting the back and we can almost get our finger in the front. Don't like it. I think it would perform good this low, but there's nothing else we can do. The TF2 is not made to set that low. The mods and stuff we did with the shocks and with the goes on 2 hoops and the servo rays and stuff like that, it's about as low as it'll go. So you can see here I got a bunch of leaf springs out. I got so many different kinds of leaf springs, it's a disaster. Pretty sure these are the 4 that were on here. You can see how tall they are. That one has a shorter distance and it's flat. We've got short arched ones, short not as arched ones that aren't as short. We got really long ones that are arched. Just a couple miscellaneous. There's so many. I mean, I've got some here that don't even have holes in them, that have multiple leaves stuck together. They have to be U-bolted. There's just so many different kinds out there. But the ones that I used were RC4wd drive, the red leaves, and unfortunately it just, I don't know, it's too janky. So I'm pretty sure it was these 4 back on there. Move the body mounts back, replace the 2 that we bent. Good thing those were cheap on Amazon. So yeah, I don't like it at all. So we'll see what we can do next. We could always still flip the axle under the leaf springs, but I did some looking at that when I was working on it. And it's going to hit the transmission in the front, the drive shaft. There's no way around it. It's too much of a drop, even with taller leaves. So I'm going to put them back on, and I'm going to put the leaves that we have on the bottom of these where they're supposed to be. And maybe these will break in like they're supposed to now. Maybe. But if they break in too much, then the axles will shift rearward again, and we'll be hitting the body, and it won't work. Curse of leaf spring trucks. So trying to make it more scale, I think it failed. I liked how it set before, but everybody kept saying, oh, you got to make it lower, you got to make it lower. So figured we'd give it a shot, but now I got to tear the whole truck apart and undo most of what we've done, just so we can feel good about it tonight, and I won't lose sleep over having a janky setup. All right, guys, I undid all that. Just wasn't feeling it. I don't want to have a hacked together rig, so I got it all put back together. It's not as low as we'd like, but it's gonna work for now. I'm excited to see how it actually performs. I'm getting ready to go back up to Kentucky, see buddy Jeremy, Big Squid, and yeah, spend some time up there, do some stuff, and do some crawling or some trailing. So yeah, I did add one more thing to this. Got this cool little CB antenna. So when we did the interior, we put in a CB radio. This came from Twisted Tree RC. Found him on Instagram. He makes a lot of cool little antennas. Got a little foxtail on it. He's got some other things. They're all kind of custom made. Looks like some fly fishing type materials. But this is a neat mount. It's a magnet mount. I know magnet mount wouldn't be on the hardtop on a Blazer, but it makes it easy to install because I just put the magnet on the bottom and stick this wherever I want. It's got a wire. I ran it down inside and stuck a little cooler in here and kind of hide where the wire goes, and that's that. So we've got a fully installed CB radio in this thing now. So this thing should be ready to go, and I think we fixed about everything on it. Add some more details, kind of filled in some of the blanks. So we'll see how it performs out at Kentucky. But until next time, guys, appreciate y'all watching, and yeah, keep it scale. I'll see y'all in the next video.